Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for this morning's CWA community call. The purpose of this call is to discuss proactive measures that you can take to put your gym in a better position to weather the coronavirus closure. We're going to hear from a panel of folks today who are doing interesting things to generate revenue while their gyms are closed and to stay connected with their membership. So on the agenda for the day, I'll run through a couple of housekeeping items and introduce our panelists. Then we'll dive right into the discussion, and there's going to be some time at the end for Q&A. So just a couple of really quick things about Zoom that I want to point out. We're going to be using the Q&A box to manage questions. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it into the Q&A. If somebody else has a question similar to yours, you can upvote it, and the more votes a question has, the higher up on the list it will be. There's also a chat box, so you can use that to share thoughts and ideas with each other. Make sure if you want to share your chat with the entire group that you toggle the chat to all panelists and attendees. And finally, there will be an opportunity for some folks to share their own comments. So we will be using the raise hand feature. So if we ask a question or we're discussing something and you want to jump in, go ahead and hit the raise hand button, and I'll do my best to try to keep an eye on that and give some more folks a chance to jump into the conversation. If you are selected to speak, you'll see this dialog box to unmute yourself, and you'll have controls in the bottom left corner to control whether you're muted or not. Okay, so thanks for bearing with me through those tutorials. We've got just a few ground rules. As always, just want everyone to be polite and respectful to each other. No personal political commentary. If you are selected to speak, please try to limit your comments to about 2 minutes if you can. And anyone who abuses these rules, we will remove. We haven't had any problems with that yet, so let's try to keep it that way. All right, so my name is Laura Aliared. I'm going to be moderating today's discussion. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at the Climbing Wall Association. I've been here for almost 3 years now. I run the CWA's marketing programs. I'm the editor of our blog and newsletter, and I manage our industry research program. Today I have with me 4 awesome panelists. We have first up Sharon Cooper, who is the marketing director at The Cliffs Climbing and Fitness. The Cliffs has 6 locations in New York and Pennsylvania. She has a decade of experience working with global and local brands such as Food Network and VH1. Her goal has always been to build a brand strategy, vision, and strategic execution through press, partnerships, and positioning. Focusing on the acquisition of new customers and engagement programs with current customers, she's always thinking of creative ideas to add strategic value to the business. Thanks so much, Sharon, for being with us today. We've also got Brad Werntz, who's the founder and president of Boulders Climbing Gym in Madison, Wisconsin. Boulders was one of the first dozen or so commercial climbing gyms in the country, opening in 1996. Today, in their 24th year of operation, they have 2 locations in Madison with more in the pipeline. Brad also, Brad also spent more than 2 decades as a rep for major climbing brands such as Petzl, 510, and Mountain Hardwear. Thanks again, Brad, for joining us today. We've also got Hillary Harris, who is the founder of Evo Rock and Fitness with locations in Colorado and Maine. A licensed architect, retired professional climber and coach, and experienced gym owner, Hillary has overseen strategic brand and business development in varying capacities for Evo since 2010. She's also one of CWA's newest blog writers and has been doing lots of research on member engagement the past few weeks. So check out her article on our blog if you haven't already about member engagement. And finally, we have Alice Cow, who is the co-founder and CEO of Sender One Climbing, with 2 locations in Los Angeles, California. Sender One was founded in 2012 with the mission to create wondrous spaces where people can discover themselves and connect with others through climbing. Prior to joining the climbing industry, Alice had a career as an international sales and marketing executive for 4 separate toy companies, and prior to that, as an investment banker. So thank you all to our panelists for joining us today. I am going to stop sharing my screen so we can see all your lovely faces. Here we go. All right, and we'll go ahead and jump right into the discussion. So we're going to start out just with an overview of the strategies that you guys are all using to keep your membership engaged while your facility is closed. So go ahead and jump in and let's hear what you have going on.
Well, for us at the Cliffs, as soon as we learned about closure, I think the main concern was the product, the facility, and the route setting that we usually offer as the product to our members in the community no longer could be available. And therefore, while we're closed, the thought process is that content and digital and social content really is the only product that we have to offer. So we got into motion right away, and we created an at-home workout program called the Cliffs at Home, which is an extension of all of our location brands together. We have instructors, fitness coaches working on giving members in the community climbing specific training programs daily, every day, weekdays at 12 p.m. We launched that on Instagram, on IGTV, as well as Facebook and our website. And we really started out creating this conversation of content that is provided from people that the community know and love, and creating that conversation, and then going on to create other programs such as Ask a Route Setter, where we're creating more of a two-way conversation and allowing members of the community to ask questions and then go live on Instagram and answer those questions.
We did something similar. We closed on March 16th, and March 17th we actually launched our online workouts. We do them live every day at 5:30. They've been very popular. Early on, we got like 1,000 views. I think now that a lot of people are doing them and they're available from lots of different places. We've lost a little bit about that, but we have 40 to 50 each time, which is good for our small gyms. We also looked at ways of virtualizing our social aspects. So a couple of things we've done to promote community in a virtual space include, we had a watch party. This was really a test for another event we had. I'll talk about that in a second, but we had planned an 80s night for Friday. I forget which day it was, the 20-something. And we just went ahead and did it. We did it online. We invited people to come online to in 80s clothing. We did a watch party with Ferris Bueller's Day Off. We hosted this via both Zoom and Netflix watch party. We got a few dozen people to attend that, and that was fun. We also partnered with a local restaurant who delivered both food and alcoholic drinks. So we had a shared food experience, and we were somewhat sharing the love with some of our neighbors in our downtown location. We also have had a few social interactions with our staff. One hosted by our general manager, Max Bevan, was a fireside chat. We learned in those first 2 endeavors that we needed to promote a little bit more, and we did that in spades for the event we had last Friday. We asked Kevin Jorgensen to join us. We had a Netflix watch party with him for the Dawn Wall. The whole event was a fundraiser for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dane County. We'd made it a challenge to raise $10,000 for the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County in March, and really had the plug pulled on us early in the month. So we had raised about $3,000. Last Friday, we were able to add $675 to that, and again partnered with a local restaurant for shared food and beverage experience. So the online engagements work really well for us. We had 1,400 people show up for our Instagram chat, and then several dozens watched the Dawn Wall as we were playing it. And each night we've done the food service hit. we pushed $1,000 to $2,000 to the restaurant down the street, which is really appreciated by both our community and Madison at large.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Hey, Alice, what have you guys been doing out in California?
Sure. So we're doing some of the similar things, online classes. We've done some Zoom workouts. And I think the one thing that we're maybe doing differently than some of the gym owners that I've talked to is we are calling our members. I kept quite a number of staff on. I actually have 26 people still working. And we've just divvied up the member list and we've been calling them. And, at first when we started doing it, it was really awkward because it's like, wow, what are we going to talk to them about? Are we asking for donations? And we decided that that was not the point. Everyone's going through the same thing. So we have a short script, but we call our members, hey, this is Alice from Sender One. How are you doing? We miss you. What can we do for you? Have you checked out our online classes? Like, how is your life going? And we've gotten some really amazing responses because I think that just like all of us here, we're all stuck at home together. And people are not wanting to get off the phone just because they want to talk to someone. So we're seeing these conversations turning into from 10 to 30 minutes. And I'd say that's the biggest thing we're doing in terms of member engagement.
Awesome.
And at this point, we've called about half of our members. It's taken quite a while, but we're like halfway done.
That's really impressive.
Yeah, that's really impressive. I in one of the earlier calls, Wes mentioned that you guys are going to do that, and I think that's awesome. And I just, this is Hillary from Evo. I just want to thank all of you guys for being here today and for sharing your ideas. I've spoken with a few of you when I was doing research for this blog article, and I have to say that it's just really inspiring to see the entire community kind of like rallying and figuring out how we can engage our members and keep the psych up, because that's really what the challenge is in front of us. And I think I was telling Laura earlier today that this in the beginning, it seems like a lot of people just sort of scrambled, and it was like, okay, emergency mode, we have to start engaging our members, and it's like this shotgun approach, like we're all trying different things. I think that as more information comes out in the upcoming weeks, our strategies are probably going to have to change a little bit, because at least in Colorado, I don't know what's going on in all of the states, but it just appears that this thing is going to be with us for, I think, longer than we had hoped. So I love the idea of actually calling your members and having those conversations. The more that we can do that, the better. We're actually starting doing meetups this week, like fireside chats, and we're going to experiment with a couple of different ones. One is going to be we have the thing called the mentorship circle that we do at Evo, and that's like, we just bring people in a circle, and we usually have like a guide or a coach or something, a mentor that leads that conversation. So we're going to experiment with that, but we're also just going to do a happy hour hangout, because it seems like these things are just blowing up. People want to see their friends. And Brad, you had mentioned to me in one of our conversations that you experimented with a kids program, and that the kids just hung out literally for hours on Zoom.
Yeah, I was going to circle back to that because I forgot to mention it. Something Alice said reminded me of that. But it took us a couple of weeks. We had to put more thought into that, because there's certainly security issues, safe coaching issues, a few other issues online. So fortunately, my wife's a teacher with Madison Metropolitan School District, so we could also track behind them. So we started our kids programs again, I think the second week. We only had 2 programs that week. Last week we had 3. This week we had 3. It looks like we're going to roll out to 5 a week. But these are private, passworded groups using Zoom as the platform. And when we first announced them, the first one we had about 40 kids come online, and we could not get them off. So our instructor there was for an hour and a half, and he just kind of left the room open. 3.5 hours later, there's still 10 kids in the room just talking about life and everything. And he had gone to the effort of making a curriculum. In his case, he started with nature. He did a nature walk in his neighborhood. He filmed it. He collected evergreen leaves because, it's not spring here in Wisconsin quite yet, or is it starting to be now, but it wasn't then. So he had evergreen needles, and he was going to teach them how to tell the difference between the different types. But he found the kids just wanted to talk, so that got shelved. Later on, we've been adding workouts because a lot of them are teen kids as well. So those styled after our group workouts we're having in the evenings, and those have become very popular. We're going to have to start age grouping it for that reason accordingly. But we've maintained that 40 to 50 kids an event. And again, it's really difficult to get them off the line. They just want to hang out and talk. And the parents love it, especially for that difficult age where the kids are just a handful. It gives them an hour plus of programming a day. And we've had, since we've made that, as well as everything we're doing free of charge, we're able to have people loop back and buy our sustaining memberships or buy our gift cards, or we've even started a tip jar via PayPal that we just quietly post at the end of our events, say, we know times are different for everyone. And if you can tip, we appreciate it. But we don't make it about what we're doing. Fortunately, we're in the position where many of our members are still supporting us, so we don't have to close the loop on financing. And we're actually getting new customers now because of the approach we've taken. And a lot of it's coming through the kids programs.
I wanted to add something about the calling. I think, I'm sure a lot of you are experiencing the same thing, is I found myself struggling with the morale of the people that are still here. And the employees, and at your center of the community is your employees. And people were saying to me, wow, they were losing their sense of purpose because we're a gym, we serve customers, we don't see anybody, everyone's stuck at home. And so for us, keeping up with doing content, we're doing that. But for us, the calling of the members actually was a way for the staff to feel more connected and feel like they had a sense of purpose.
That's really good to hear. I think, Hillary, you made a really interesting point earlier about the timeline of everything and kind of the shotgun approach. And I agree. I think for us, it was super important to get one piece of content up and going as soon as possible, and launching the Cliffs at Home. We were really proud to launch that within 48 hours of closing. And then thinking about, it's not just the quantity of what you're putting out, but it's really the quality, right? So first, and I'm sure I heard this from a lot of the other panelists, but it's really focusing on one thing at a time. So for us, first we focus at the Cliffs at Home. Then the second week of being closed, we launched our weekly newsletter called Off Belay, which includes staff recommendations, different things from members, as well as Cliffs at Home. And then the next week launching Friday Night Flicks. And I think also to Brad's point and talking about the goodwill of what you create with community members and engagement is all of the content that we're providing is free for members, free for everybody. And I think from there, it's about the goodwill and the community that we've created over the past 15 years at the Cliffs, and hoping that now, in addition to the goodwill that's been established by the team, that continued content and value will engage our members and encourage them to keep their membership active rather than charging a certain amount of money for every specific thing.
Yeah, we're doing the same thing. As far as, the approach is, okay, how can we create value? And hopefully that we're creating enough value that the members do want to opt in to supporting. We're also giving members the opportunity to say, I think Brad is doing this as well, where, okay, maybe you can't afford to pay for a full membership, but in our membership change form, we're giving people the opportunity to choose how much money they want to pay. And we've actually had some folks donate more money than their regular membership.
Yeah, we've had the same. We call that our sustaining membership. And when people who didn't encounter us before say, my kids are really enjoying the kids program, or I've been doing your workouts every day, I've given you a tip a couple times, but is there another way I can help you? That sustaining membership is what we send out to them. And then that gives them the option to buy into that. So we are planning for attrition. I think, Sharon, what you mentioned, this is going to be a 2, 3, 5 month deal. So attrition is going to be part of it. So we have other income streams we're developing, including retail, more pointed retail. A lot of that's wrapped around special edition t-shirts, limited edition t-shirts. We just placed an order today for our first run of those. We just put them out there, and we're only ordering exactly as many as we pre-sold. The idea being that later they'll be collector's items, and people get psyched about the shirt, and they'll be part of that support. We've engaged our pro shops. We just did a run of, and we wrestled with this one, but we wanted to support Josh at Organic. It's pad season for us here, and people are calling us saying, do you have pads? Ideally we don't have people going out to the crags right now, but at the same time they want the pads. So we sold out of pads and did a reorder of those. There's a lot of ways to transact if people know that you're available. And I think being available and being free and just making it about the community has really been key to how we've been able to monetize that and how we're looking at it going forward.
Yeah, another thing that we've had some success in is people are looking to build home walls or figure out, how they can train at home. Our location here in Colorado is very close to Trango, so we were able to sell a lot of Trango hangboards by special order. I think that would be more difficult to be, selling those hangboards, but there's probably opportunities for partnerships around that. And we also sold a lot of really old holds that we were trying to get rid of and we couldn't get rid of, and those just flew off the shelves like the first week. So
Yeah, people love old holds for their homes, for sure.
It's just wanted to jump in. I see the question about the t-shirts. We have a full-time graphic designer, and we've been challenging him to design new t-shirts. We wanted them. We also, Sharon, we're not riffing on you. We actually looked at a lot of other content, including the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, at home. That we got the same name, so we're Boulders at Home. We changed our brand for that reason.
From us, actually.
Pardon?
He stole that from us. We had it first.
Okay. I'll give you credit then. But we changed our logo to have Boulders at Home. We switched all of our social media so that we could challenge our customers to think of how they engage with the Boulders community, because that's one thing that we as a business, all of us as businesses have, is there's really 4 things we transact on, and different gyms are structured different ways. And in order for us, it's community, then recreation, then fitness, then retail. And we put our focus on the first 2. Other gyms are recreation first, other gyms are fitness first. Some locations are maybe retail first with a climbing wall in their shop, things like that. Those models exist also. But being community first, we wanted people to be challenged by the idea of how they could be part of the community at home. And the t-shirt was kind of an offshoot of that. So we'll be printing t-shirts that say Boulders at Home on the front, and then the custom graphic on the back. And we'll debut those shortly. Our team is very creative, so we're actually arguing about the ideas now because everyone wants theirs to be the one. Really the idea is a way to memorialize this time without making it necessarily about the bad times. We'll make it about our events, we'll make it about our people, we'll make it about this awkward thing of all of us sharing our living rooms together and working out at the same time, and not necessarily about COVID-19 or the quarantine. And we'll roll those out. The first one was a shirt that we had canned already. It was a popular graphic that we'd never made into a t-shirt, so we made it available. And we have humble goals. We're just trying to make a few $100 a day is really our revenue goal for now, and we're able to do that by doing these small efforts.
I missed a question, so I'm still learning how to use this panel thing. So one of the questions was, Alice, are your employees coming to the gym and calling members from there, calling them from personal phones at home, or working through a Google number? So yes, my employees are working from home. We're not asking anybody to come to the gym. And we reimburse them for their cell phone bills. In California, we have some of the most strict labor laws. So we just do a phone reimbursement and set up a Google number for them.
Okay, thanks, Alice. We have a couple of questions here about the idea of sustaining memberships and how those are structured. So anyone who is executing on that, could you speak to the specifics of how you've set that up? One of the specific questions is, are these purely donation dues, or are you crediting members once you reopen for those funds?
We actually offered 3 options at first, and the first option was continue my dues for no credit. The second option was continue dues for credit, and the third option was freeze or cancel immediately. And we're small gyms. One of our gyms, our original gym's 24 years old. We have 2 more gyms in the pipeline for our local market, but our second gym is a bouldering gym, and it's also small. So a good percentage of our income is already from memberships. It's probably disproportionately high compared to other gyms. And well over half of our members elected to continue paying us, and all of them at full rate. And only about 20% of them are at this point asking for credit. We made it possible that at some point they can turn around and say, you know what, this has gone on for 5 months and I'd love to keep paying you, but I'm going to need that credit back. And we'll switch it to a credit. And then we came out with the sustaining membership option, which allows people to pick their own payment. And that's a new membership we've offered. And we actually went back and retargeted people who canceled or asked us to freeze, because many of them said, look, I wish I could, but I just can't. And so we just sent them back and said, well, could you pay $10? Could you pay $15? And we sold a good number of sustaining memberships, what we're calling sustaining memberships there. And I've already mentioned new customers have asked, how can I help you guys besides a tip jar? And we point them towards the sustaining membership.
Yeah, a great way. Is anybody else doing sustaining membership? Okay. So let's transition to kind of this question of generating revenue. What have been the most successful tactics for generating revenue during this closure?
For us at the Cliffs, we decided to opt people in to keep paying their membership with the ability to freeze at any time for no fee. And then creating content. So creating content and value for free and allowing people to keep their membership active in response to what they've been given. It was really great response that we had where people were actually asking and emailing us if they could purchase gift cards, which we weren't pushing out to begin with. And as a response to that, we started pushing gift cards as well. So on our website and on our weekly newsletters, we're allowing people to purchase gift cards in addition to if they'd like to keep their membership active.
So
yeah, I would. Oh, sorry. I'll let Alice.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, okay. So what I was going to say to this is, I'm an investment. I was an investment banker, so I have dashboards. It's more than you can imagine. And actually, during this time, I made a decision, and it was more a strategic decision in line with our values that I was not going to focus on revenue. So sure, we're bringing in gift cards and donations. We decided that for our April dues, we donated to the staff that we furloughed, and we were very transparent with the community about it. Because I don't know about you, but I don't know a single person here that has gotten a unemployment check yet, and even though they filed 3 weeks ago, and I know they can use the money the next 2 weeks. And for me, I think it's important that I've been through the last 2 recessions myself, and some parts of this reminds me a little bit of 9/11. And I think it's important to remember people care. It's how you make people feel right now. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not something that's measurable, and it's very against all the business things we learned, but that's what I've been focusing on. And whatever revenue that comes in, that's great, but I'm not counting on it and not putting a focus to it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Alice. I think that how people feel and keeping your community engaged during this time is the most important thing, because that's bringing long-term value to the business, right? It's not about the immediate revenues. I think that there are things that our government, hopefully there's various programs to help businesses with that end of it. And, I think people will continue to donate or pay into a membership if they're able. But yeah, I agree. I don't think that should be the primary focus.
And I just saw this question from Stephanie about events that had to be canceled. So we do a ton of birthday parties. That is a huge part of my business. And actually, those are the customers that are hardest for us to connect with. And so if anybody wants to cancel and they want their credit back, we're offering credit, you know, obviously doing the right financial thing, offering credit, but if they really wanted a refund, we get them on the phone. We're like, look, do you need this money more than I need this money? Then if you do, then I will give you your money back. And I think that it's important to remember that your customers are people, and they're going through, you know, similar things. And some of the members that I have called, people they work for restaurants, they've lost their jobs, you know, they don't have childcare. So people are struggling out there, and I think it's just really an opportunity to connect with them at the human level, not like, hey, you're my member. It's just, you're a person who is going through a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Alice, I think that's really important. I think similar for us, really the authenticity and the transparency has been key, and letting members know that we have kept all of our staff on, and any membership that they keep active will go to paying staff. And I think that point right there, that transparency really allowed a lot of members to keep their membership active.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up those points. That's really important to keep in mind when we're thinking about navigating all of this. We had a question going back to the sustaining membership. Excuse me. Brad, if you could speak to sort of the quantity, the volume of people, question about like making it worth it to put in the time and labor investment to create that type of membership. At what point does that become worth it?
You know, it's a good question. Again, I said our revenue goals are humble, and like Alice has said, you know, it's not about revenues for us. You know, we're in a fortunate position that you know, our member base on its own will sustain us for the foreseeable future, with one caveat, is that we're foreseeing that there's going to be a lot of attrition at a certain point. So, you know, our revenue goals I mentioned are a few $100s a day. You know, our staffing costs are well in excess of that. You know, our members are in essence paying for staff, but our staff also needs work to do. Everyone we kept on board, we were in a position where we had to furlough a good chunk of people, mostly part-timers, you know, 50 plus part-timers we had to furlough just because we had no hours for them or no duties for them. And we had to lay off a few full-timers. And we were forced there because, you know, it happened so quickly, and I didn't want to get in a position of having to lay people off and then being cash strapped for payroll as well. We've recently applied for the PPP loan. The bulk of that will go back to payroll, and hopefully we'll bring everyone back on board and then be able to put them to work. We've discussed what Alice had done, reaching out to our members through a variety of means is one thing that they could do. Also deploying them to the community is another thing we may have them do for that payroll. But our goal is to make everyone as whole as possible, as quickly as possible with that PPP loan. So worth it is for me kind of a vague question, because we've sold a few dozen new sustaining memberships. It took an email blast in the first case, and then it's just a pipeline when people ask, hey, I'd like to do something more than buying a gift card or giving you a tip. How can I do that? And we point them to the sustaining membership. And it took some time to set it up, and our platform is MindBody. It converts very well online. You know, I left RGP a couple of years ago, and we made the transition to the new gym, and I know that their platform is quite robust online as well now too, but it wasn't at the time, at least for us. But it didn't take that much to set up the SKU on MindBody. And again, we sold a few dozen of these, and it's a real passive sale for us now. So there's not a huge payroll expense involved. And again, we're making a few hundred a month on that. And our revenue goals for the moment are a few hundred a day of extra income over and beyond what our members are supporting. I hope that's not too long of an answer, but you know, it's how we've worked it, and it's working so far.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. We have a great question here. Gyms that are kind of donating their revenues to their staff, are you documenting that in any way? And have you had any members ask for any sort of proof or verification that that's what you're doing with those funds?
Other than trust, no. but we're doing payroll this week, and so we're going to send an email to all the members who donated and just let them know, hey, you know what, this money is going to the staff, and the other expenses that need to be paid, well, we're just going to eat it, and yeah, like Brad, try to get a loan and pay for it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the other question about, besides the example of calling members and possibly route setting, cleaning, and busy duties, if you're keeping staff on payroll, what are other things you're doing? So I can answer this one. So like I said, I have 26 people working. This week, we're actually transitioning to some longer term projects, and it's to really prepare what the gym is going to look like when we're able to open. And I'd like to hear the ideas of other panelists as well, but I've spoken to a lot of my friends in Asia and Europe, China, Taiwan, which has been one of the most successful countries in managing this crisis. And just getting, like, I'm a very hopeful person, hopefully one of these when you get to meet me, but I'm also a realist. So I know that I don't think it's ever going to be the same. You know, I don't think the doors are going to open and it's going to be, wow, you know what, we have 500 people in the door the next day. I think we're going to be opening at a limited capacity. We're going to have to increase our health and safety standards. So we have a team working on what that looks like when we're able to do it. And I also believe that later in the year, we might experience another shutdown. You know, if we open and the numbers are not where we need it to be, then at least in California, we're going to shut the state down again. So what does that look like for us? And again, I hope this never happens, but I'm coming up with a contingency plan. I'm taking this time to develop strategies and operation and preparation for that.
Yeah, that brings up a really good point, which is planning timelines. What are your planning timelines for your current member engagement strategies? And how do you think that your tactics might change as the timeline for closures kind of starts to maybe look longer and longer as this situation develops?
Our content strategy has been to, again, what I said earlier about continuing to build onto what we're doing, right? So first it was at-home workouts, then it was weekly newsletters, then we started streaming our Friday night flicks, watching movies with each other, doing things on Instagram like the quarantine questionnaire, continuing to create content. And like I said earlier, at first it was a one-to-many conversation. What content are we creating to provide our members? And then creating that into a two-way conversation where members are submitting content and we can interact back and forth with them. And the idea behind all of the concepts that we're creating are concepts that can live on for weeks or months. So our plan is to we've seen success with what we're building and continue building that throughout the temporary closure.
Yeah, I think something to keep in mind with creating content, this kind of goes back to that emergency shotgun approach that we were all implementing, is to start thinking about not just creating content now in a live format, but how can you create content that can be repurposed? And that's a little bit of a different approach. I think it would be worth looking into possibly investing in better equipment for your yoga instructors or whoever is streaming live from their homes. I know that there's a lot of kind of like little mini microphones that you can put on a computer and, little tactics to make video quality sort of more professionalized so that it could be repurposed in the future.
Yeah, there's two questions. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, it's just an idea. It's not something that we've implemented, but it's something that's been in the back of my mind is the whole notion of being able to repurpose that content.
Yeah, this addresses both what are we having the employees do and how we're doing the future. But, like Sharon, we're looking at this at the long term. Like Alice too, we're just trying to challenge ourselves. But that ties back with having the employees do. And one of the stories I keep telling them, they're bored of it, I'm sure already, is the story of the Endurance with Shackleton. And not so much the survival epic that was there, and the fact that they crossed the ocean and it took 3 years and they did all these amazing things. But the one thing that Shackleton did for his team that was really, really engaging for them that really ensured that they not only would survive, but they would thrive, is that he had them go back out on the ice and deconstruct the endurance. And he had them deconstruct it and brought all that material on land. I mean, they had tents, they had shelter. They didn't really, on one hand, need to do this, but he knew his guys needed projects, these big, crazy projects. So he challenged them to build these cabins that still stand today. And people visit those cabins and they discover new things about them every year. Just a few years ago, they discovered a few hundred bottles of scotch hidden under one of them, well stored and still in place. And they sold it for like millions of dollars each. So it just shows their ingenuity, but he knew that keeping their minds engaged was really important. So we've talked about that internally, that we need these crazy goals. So that's what came of, how we didn't hit our goal for the month for March for raising $10,000 for the Boys and Girls Club. How are we going to fill that gap? And we came up with Kevin Jorgensen, and Kevin showed up and threw down, and we got 1,400 people to watch him live. That's a big, crazy goal. Keeping the bar raising is really important. The cool thing about being online is you can fail spectacularly and nobody knows. You're the only ones who see the figures. And then you regroup and you go back and you go, okay, how can we get more people to watch this time? Because that was fun, but only 3 people showed up. But really, we're in that business now. And I just told all of them, your job's the same. You just don't have the gym as your tool. What do you need to get your job done? And we, to Hillary's point, we try to deliver on that as well. So getting the tools is really important.
Yeah, great points. And for anybody who's not familiar with the endurance, I just put a little Wikipedia link in the chat. You can check that story out. So that brings us to a good question, which is tools. What tools are you guys using to execute on these engagement strategies, and what have been the most successful tools?
For us, it was important not to recreate the wheel. We have a high engagement factor on Instagram, Facebook, our website, as well as email communication. So for me, it didn't, and for the Cliffs, it didn't necessarily make sense to start a YouTube channel or start different platforms. We wanted to elevate and utilize the ways that we currently are engaging with our members, which is why we rolled out most of our programs across Instagram, IGTV, Insta Stories, as well as Facebook, website, and alerting people via email communication. And then I think one other tool that's interesting to note, and will be interesting as however long the closure takes, is we've been utilizing all of our staff to help with this engagement factor. So when we launch these different programs, we provide the staff with different creative assets to help them be and facilitate brand ambassadors for what we're creating and help drive that socialization throughout the climbing community of what we're doing.
Brad, have you been using Zoom? Is that what you said that you guys are using?
Yeah, we're using Zoom for our kids programs for the security aspect. We have a password protected Zoom room. The passwords are regenerated every session, so only the people who've engaged can get in. We have a waiting room for that, so anybody who shows up new is vetted before they come in, and that's all based on protocols we borrowed from the school district. I was pretty convinced we needed to use Zoom for both our meetups and our, especially the Donwall movie night. My team convinced me that Instagram Live was better for the Donwall, and I'm glad we did that because Kevin showed up with his millions of followers, and the second it showed that he was live, people just poured in, which was great. Magnified what we do. So we haven't tried to reinvent the wheel. I have been lurking around a lot of other sites. A lot of people are doing YouTube channels and other channels. And one of the downsides about YouTube in particular is that you see the count of people who watch, and those numbers are really low compared to our average on Facebook and Instagram. So I think those are the better platforms for live streaming, and Zoom for protection. One of the things, again, kind of tying this back to the after, were 2 small gyms, a bouldering gym and then a very old, original gym. And we don't really have a lot of room for fitness classes or fitness equipment or yoga, which is something we get a lot of pressure to do, especially from people who move from out of town. And we envision a future where we're offering free yoga to our members via these platforms, not in the gym. They can do it at home, roll out of bed at 6 a.m. and do their yoga. And not have to do it live. So we see just new ways of doing business moving forward. Again, to Alice's point, that things are going to change radically, and social distancing will be part of it, but also the benefit of being able to, again, to fail spectacularly at home. I'm doing yoga for the first time in years. The guy who leads my group workouts is crazy insane and does some things that I just physically can't do. And I'm wiping out in my living room every day in a way I would never do in my own gym. And people have commented that they feel more comfortable doing that as well. So there's huge benefits, I think, to virtualizing our businesses, even though we're anchored in a brick and mortar space.
Yeah, that's a great point. In some ways, this has presented an opportunity to think outside of the box and solve challenges that we already had, but just didn't have time to put a lot of effort behind before. We've got a question here about social media and how often you all are posting. Has your cadence of posting on social changed since the closures?
Ours has continued about the same. We're posting at a minimum of once a day. I think also we are utilizing tactics that we've been using before closure. For example, we've been doing Staff Sunday and Member Monday for a long time now. And now during our temporary closure, we're just focusing those highlights of staff and members on how those members are helping the community and how they're helping the community at large. So we're featuring any essential workers, healthcare workers that are helping the community, showing them in the gym as well as outside of the gym, and just really recognizing what people are doing to help during this time.
Awesome. How about you, Alice? Are you guys posting more, less? Has this changed the amount of engagement you guys are getting on social?
I think it's about the same. And I think we really try to, after the first week, the shock of it, we've been really trying to focus on things that are more positive. Like yesterday, we posted about the Pan American Games that we hosted at Center One right before the whole thing shut down. And, you know, I had totally forgotten about it, but that was just a month ago that we had this huge competition with over 1,000 people. So that actually made me really happy. We are doing more newsletters. We're doing twice a week right now. But just staying positive, doing what we can.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, as far as creating just general psych, I think that there's so much content out there that we can share. It doesn't need to just be focused on the gym right now, but you know, there's articles you can share, there's films you can share, podcasts that you can share. We're going to start repurposing content in our Portland gym this week. They do a boulder of the week every single week. And there's some really funny videos that have been put out over the years. So we're going to be doing, you know, a throwback kind of thing once a week with that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We had a pretty strict limit on our social engagement, you know, as well as our emails before all this happened. And we just tore the roof off of it. We're just increasing. We noticed that there's a lot more capacity to absorb it. We're actually getting mailing list increases, growth in our Facebook page, growth in our Instagram feed, where before if we overposted, we'd see it decline. And I was really I was always the guys jumping in, and you know, we were using a social media management tool, and I was like, oh, this is cool, I'll post this. And my staff over years trained me not to do this, and now I'm like, hey, could you guys get this in the schedule? Like, Brad, just post it. I'm like, so completely reversed how it had been managed prior. We're just posting everything.
Awesome. We've got a really good question here. Do you have any suggestions for very small gyms that don't necessarily have the ability to run larger scale events online? This person has 4 staff on currently. So because they've had to furlough their other staff, they can't ask them to promote their events like they would normally. Do you have any thoughts or advice for kind of trying to do the most with kind of a smaller staff?
I'd just say, you know, define what you can do and do that. So the watch parties don't take a lot of bandwidth, and they actually don't take a lot of people. So, you know, if you have a basic engagement with, the real difficult content to make effectively is the graphics. So even if you have a Canva account or something that can help you, or just even something to make a sign basically to get on social media to say you're going to have it. The technology of running an Instagram live or a Facebook live event is really simple. We have it right here in your laptop and or your phone is how we did Instagram live. That works great. And so really it's just networking or just trying things. So whether it's a fireside chat or the watch party or getting an athlete or a celebrity to come in, you can pick that event, and then managing the event itself is really the easy part of that. So with a staff of 4, I think you could accomplish the watch party idea pretty easily. If you don't have someone on staff who can lead fitness groups, you might reach out to a local yoga studio saying, hey, I've got an audience who wants yoga. Can we work something out? Same for fitness classes. We're using a subcontractor for our yoga for that reason. We don't have anyone on staff who can do it. He's the guy who normally does it in-house, but we have relationships with local yoga studios to draw in instructors when we need to fill a hole. So I just network locally to try to fill the gaps and then pick the simplest events you can do and do those.
Yeah, I think I can speak to this one a little bit as well, since the CWA staff is 3 people currently. We've completely pivoted all of our time to creating resources for the industry, and we've been running these events twice a week. And that idea of kind of defining what you think you can accomplish and just putting your energy towards that, I think is really important. And let me bring Kristen Horowitz in here. I am unmuting you now, Kristen.
Hey, this is, whoa, it's a picture of my kids when we're at a dog show. I don't know why the video is not working, but sorry guys. I wanted to jump in on this because until about 2.5 years ago, I pretty much ran all of our gym social media and everything else. When you're small, own it and basically make it a cult of personality. If you're a small gym, everybody knows who you are. So I really suggest, rather than trying to get it shiny and look professional, you're not professional, you're small, you're feeling, and capitalize on that. So when we were first doing stuff on social media, it was a lot of like dumb selfie pictures of me doing dumb things, or me just going around and talking about, hey, do you want to see the back of the walls? Have you ever seen the back of the walls? You can do so much stuff without having to try to compete with the big folks that have, graphic designers on. I know how much work it is to like try to do the design with Canva. So I just really say like own your homegrown, and it'll grow your brand and your loyalty in that way.
So I wanted to add to that, actually. Thank you, Kristen. I think that, for me, it's a very vulnerable thing to do, but I've really been trying to, I'm a big gym. So we are a big gym. And over the years, I've heard people say this all the time, like, hey, Sender One is so corporate. I was like, what does that even mean? I worked at Mattel. Mattel is corporate. I work the front desk sometimes and I clean the bathrooms, and I think it really helps to, whatever you're doing, be transparent with your customers. Like, I'm a mom. I have 2 little kids that are 2 and 6, and she just came in here and needs help for homework. So I'm struggling just like you are, and I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah.
So if that means that I can only afford to pay 4 people, and those 4 people are generating content, like, for me, I would just come out and just say that. Because I think during this time, I know it's hard to let go of the judgment or whatever people are thinking about you, but it's just not that important right now.
Yeah, to your point, Alice, I think that the general feeling around the world is that there's this sort of authenticity that we're seeing like everywhere. I mean, we're seeing it in Hollywood. We're seeing it with people that are doing, they're like the Daily Show or whatever, like they're doing it from their homes, they're wearing sweatshirts, there's just kind of this sense of authenticity and realness that culturally, we're experiencing collectively, and it's kind of a breath of fresh air, honestly. I think it's an opportunity to be more real.
And same thing with staff engagement. When we had to furlough 135 people, and on that Zoom meeting, people were sending me comments like, how is Sender One leaving me behind? Why are you guys doing this? Why aren't you paying me for da 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 da? And I just got to a point where I had to say, guys, you know what? I know you guys see me as the CEO. Sure, that's what I do every day, but I'm a human being. You know, my mom is 71 years old. She babysits my kids sometimes, so I have to be careful. You know, I don't have millions of dollars. I'm making it work and I'm doing the best I can. And I have been through 2 recessions, but I've never been through a pandemic. So I don't know. I mean, I'm winging it every day and doing the best I can.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Alice. No one has been through a pandemic like this before, so we are all winging it. We're all in this together. I really appreciate you guys joining us today and sharing your thoughts with us. It's been really great to hear what you all are working on. So stay engaged with us. We want to hear more from the audience and from everyone on what you all are working on. So we've created a forum where you can share your thoughts and your projects, your strategies, your ideas with each other. It's at climbingwallindustry.org/forum. We have a specific section topic there for member engagement, and we're going to be adding other areas as well over time. So that's going to be a great way for us to kind of work together and share our ideas. We have a couple of upcoming webinars this week. We're doing a special one tomorrow for our Canadian friends. It's going to be at 11 o'clock Mountain. If you would like to sign up for that one, you can reach out to me or Garnet and we'll get you the link to sign up. And our Thursday call is going to be with Monument Sports Group this week to talk about insurance issues. You can ask your burning insurance questions. And as always, we're here for you guys. If you need anything at all, Garnet, Alexandra, and I are available. Our contact information is up here, and we are adding everything, all of our coronavirus resources to our coronavirus resource hub, which is at climbingwallindustry.org/coronavirus. So thank you all so much for your time and have a good one.